Hi sewing friends, welcome to my sewing room. My name is Beth, and if you're new, welcome. Here are the two quilt tops I finished recently, and today I'm going to add borders and I will begin quilting, but at the end of the video I will show you how my machine had a little issue, so I'm going to have to pause on this project and get that fixed. For my border, I cut mainly 3-inch strips. There are some strips that are 2.5 from my 2.5-inch binding drawer, but most of these I cut at 3 inches, and I put them together in groups of 2 and then groups of 3. And after getting lots of strips sewn together, I press them and then cut them into chunks that are 6 inches. My quilt top on the floor, all I had to do was to lay those groups of 3s and 2s all around the quilt until I had almost enough. And after I have everything laid out, I'm going to begin by sewing all of those groups together and getting this border ready to go to attach to my quilt. I took that long strip of little 6-inch strips that had been sewn together and I pinned them onto the quilt edge. I did not measure, but I put the right sides together and I pinned. Doesn't come out exactly when I do it like this. There might be a little excess at the end and I just trim that off. I don't worry if it's a partial strip, and if it's too short, I just added a couple of those little segments to make it fit. And here are my two quilt tops. These are for my grandsons. They're 4 years old and they're little I Spy squares, all different fun fabrics that I thought the boys would enjoy. And adding this border really brings it all together. I have a large roll of batting. This is a Hobbs batting that's cotton and polyester. And while it's folded on the roll, I lay my quilt on it and then cut, and then I can open up the fold and it's long enough for the length of my quilt, which is about 90 inches long. And then I'll trim off the excess and get some backing for my quilt. Here's one of the backing fabrics. I cut off that selvage, leaving a little extra there for my selvage bag, and I don't like the selvage in the middle of the backing fabric. It's a little bulky, so I always try to cut off that selvage, and I'll put right sides together and sew these long pieces together, and so I will have enough. I needed about 4 yards for each of my quilts backings, and I use this 505 spray to make my quilt sandwich. It's on a long table in my sewing room, and I'll begin at one end and spray that batting and smooth the quilt over the batting, and then I'll do the same with the backing fabric. Once I had my quilt sandwich together, I started in the middle of the quilt, and I'm putting quilt lines through each square, and at the borders there I took a ruler and some chalk markers, and I am drawing that line from the squares across the border. So I can eyeball from corner to corner in the squares, but on the edges I just took a ruler, and every time I came to a border I added a line with my ruler. And these chalk pencils are little rollers. I have a blue and a white, and I needed them both. The blue works well on the white fabric, and then the darker fabrics I needed to have that white chalk marker. I quilted diagonal lines all the way through my quilt, but I would like to put some more lines going the opposite direction to make a crosshatch pattern. But while I was quilting, I had a little piece fall off my machine or break off my machine. It's called the needle bar thread hook, and I'm going to show you in a minute what that is. My machine actually continued to work, but I would like to get it repaired, and I don't feel up to the challenge of figuring out how to do that. I'm a little concerned I would not do it correctly. The part is $2, very inexpensive part for the machine, but I'm going to take it in to the sewing machine repair shop later today. And so this quilt is not quite done, and then I have the other quilt that I need to quilt as well. So I thought I'll just trim away the excess before I take my sewing machine in, and I can come back and add those extra quilting lines when my machine has been repaired. Here is the quilt with those quilting lines, and I could leave it as is, but I would like to add lines going the opposite direction. And my machine has this little, like I said, a needle bar thread hook, a very tiny little hook that attaches there to the needle, right above the needle, that guides the thread. And here's that little hook, and I'm going to be getting that fixed hopefully soon, and then I can get back to working on these quilts. Thanks for joining me today, and I'll see you next time.